Namaste. I am Pratik Aswin Vaisa, working as assistant professor in the subject of accountancy at Sri Bhaikaka Government Arts and Commerce College, Sojitra, Gujarat. I am participant of third refresher course in commerce and management organized by UGC HRDC of Gujarat University, Ahmedabad. Today, I will be presenting I will be presenting the topic of environmental accounting. In this particular presentation, I will be covering meaning and definition of environmental accounting, various approaches with respect to environmental accounting, merits and limitations of environmental accounting, and existing practices in India with respect to environmental accounting. So, environmental accounting is something which has its roots in since 1970s. Prior to 1970s, environmental accounting was considered a part of social accounting only. But after 1970s, environmental accounting is having its own existence. Experts have started to think about it, and Norway during that time was the first country to adopt environmental accounting. So basically, environmental accounting is all about incorporating environmental matters into books of accounts. Environmental accounting is taking into account pollution which is created by companies, renewable energy usage which is done by manufacturing of companies, various aspects of environmental matters are to be considered as income, expense, assets, liabilities, etc. under various models of environmental accounting. So there are various experts who have suggested various views, but unfortunately, there is not a single model over which all experts are having same opinion. So still debate is going on about what model should be accepted for implementing environmental accounting. Now, as far as approaches of environmental accounting is concerned, basically there are three approaches. First is about physical, that that is about quantifiable approach. At beginning of the year, it will be counted that how many trees are there, and at end of the year again trees will be counted, and on that basis those natural resources are to be uh, quantified, and on that basis environmental accounting can take place. So it's all about physical calculation. uh, Second approach is about monetizing those environmental aspects, and that is very crucial but at the same time very controversial, because to measure environmental aspects monetarily is very difficult. That is, a company is polluting air of how many rupees. That calculation is difficult. There are certain statistical techniques which are under development for monetizing these environmental aspects, but it is still under process. So that is the second approach, which will be very crucial, but for that still some time will be there required. Third approach, it is welfare approach, which that is the least popular approach, and that is to be it's all about companies' welfare activities with respect to environment, that is to be considered under environmental accounting. Now, there are various advantages or merits of environmental accounting. Basically, by incorporating environmental accounting, the disclosure of environmental aspects can take place. By incorporating environmental accounting, companies can fulfill their social responsibility. They can be considered as their social responsible citizen. And by doing that, companies can certainly help in protecting environment. Now, as far as limitations of environmental accounting is concerned, there are certain expenses which are still not recognized under environmental accounting, that what should be considered as an expense, what should be considered as an asset, what should be considered as a liability, what should be considered as an income. All these things are still debatable, and that creates limitation for environmental accounting. There are certain goods and services which are not at all marketed, and therefore they are having no price. They are very much valuable. There are certain things which are not known to people, and that's why they are not priced at all. But on health wise and on many other reasons, they are very valuable. Without that, those natural resources, human life is in danger. But still, as there is not much marketing of those goods and services and not much awareness about it, we may say that that is the limitation of environmental accounting. And then there are certain things that, say for example, forest. Uh, Whatever income forest gives, that is considered as national income. But in reality, we are reducing our forest area, and that should be considered as a negative aspect, but we are considering reduction of forest as an income. So that is how environmental accounting is having its limitation, and these aspects are to be thoroughly considered before arriving at a good model of environmental accounting. At present, in India, there is no strict uniform governing rule with respect to environmental accounting. Companies have started to disclose environmental aspect voluntarily since 1990s in India, and still they are disclosing. Of course, in the year 2011, Ministry of Corporate Affairs of India has come out with certain guidelines, and through which companies were required to disclose under business responsibility reporting. There were certain principles for which companies were required to disclose their environmental as well as social and other aspects. But they are in main, it's all about theoretical aspect. So companies are, research shows that companies are not doing it uh, as considering as their moral duty. They are disclosing all these environmental aspects because of pressurization from stakeholders and to fulfill, or you may say to comply legal provisions. So unless and until companies will not consider that is at their moral responsibility, this environmental disclosure will remain on paper only. Research also indicate that companies are exhibiting only positive aspects. They are not mentioning negative aspect of environmental matters. For example, companies will write down that how many trees have been planted by them, but companies will not mention how many trees have been cut by them. Likewise, they will strict on subjective, theoretical, descriptive mentioning of environmental matters. They will not much be worried about quantifying those environmental matters, which is possible to quantify. Uh, Carbon credit and all these things which are quantifiable, they are mentioning only when legal compliance is there. but there can be certain research and development expenses for environmental matters. It should be quantifiable. There should be environmental standards, targets, which can be mentioned in quantitative terms. Companies may try to incorporate environmental matters into books of account using certain models. They may consider it as to notes to accounts, and all these things are possible. But for that, serious efforts by companies are required. And that is where companies are lacking. But because of pressure from all stakeholders and government, certainly companies will come out with more environmental disclosure. Of course, government is also required to formalize, to finalize certain model, universal model for incorporate environmental accounting, which will be applicable to all companies. And once it will be done, compulsion will be there. Companies will have no option but to incorporate environmental accounting in a better way. So because of awareness, pressurization from stakeholders, government, we may say that within very near future, there will be implementation of environmental accounting in true sense in India also. With these words, uh, before concluding, I just would like to request all, let us go green to make our environment clean. Let us be a part of solution and not pollution. I thank UGC HRDC of Gujarat University Ahmedabad for allowing me to participate in this refresher course of commerce and management subjects. Once again, I thank you. Thank you all.